Rutland, Vermont, autumn 1836. The air is sharp with the promise of winter. Inside a small house on the edge of town, a man is packing a bag. His hands are shaking, not from cold, from fear. John Deere is 32 years old, a blacksmith, talented, respected once. But now he is something else, a debtor. And in 1836 America, being unable to pay your debts is not just a financial failure. It is a crime, one that can land you in prison. The creditors are closing in. The sheriff, according to rumors circulating through town, is preparing papers. An arrest is imminent. John has heard stories about debtors' prison. Stone walls, iron bars, men rotting away because they owed money they could not pay. He has a wife, Demarius, pregnant with their third child. He has 2 young daughters, and he has $73 to his name. So, on a November evening, John Deere makes a decision that will echo through generations. He runs. He kisses his wife goodbye, promises to send for her once he finds safety, packs his bag with a few tools, and disappears into the night. He is not a hero, not yet. He is a fugitive, a man fleeing the law, a husband abandoning his pregnant wife to face the shame and the creditors alone. But he is also desperate, and desperation, as much as ambition, builds empires. John travels west, through New York, through Ohio, across territories that barely have names. He is heading for the frontier, for places where no one knows his name, where no one cares about debts owed in Vermont, where a man with strong hands and a sharp mind can start over. He ends up in Grand Detour, Illinois, a settlement so small it barely qualifies as a town, a collection of rough cabins huddled against the Rock River, the kind of place where civilization is still negotiating with wilderness, where mud and isolation are the primary features. John sets up a forge. He makes horseshoes, repairs tools, does the kind of work any blacksmith can do. He keeps his head down, saves money, waits for the day when it will be safe to send for his family. But John Deere is not just a fugitive blacksmith. He is an observer. And what he observes in the fields around Grand Detour changes everything. Part 2. The soil that would not yield. The farmers of Illinois are suffering, and they do not understand why. They have traveled hundreds of miles to reach this land. They have heard the stories. The soil in Illinois is black, rich, the kind of earth that should grow anything, the kind of earth that makes men wealthy. But the soil is lying, or rather, it is demanding a price the farmers cannot pay. Because the black earth of the prairie, for all its fertility, is also heavy, sticky. When it is wet, it has the consistency of thick clay. It clings to everything, including the cast-iron plows the farmers brought with them from the east. The plows the farmers use are designed for the rocky, sandy soil of New England, rough cast-iron, pitted surfaces. They work fine in Vermont, in Massachusetts, in Pennsylvania. But in Illinois they are useless. The sticky black earth clings to the plow blade. After every few feet, the plow clogs. The farmer has to stop his team of oxen, scrape the mud off the blade with a wooden paddle, walk a few more yards, stop again, scrape again. It is back-breaking, soul-crushing, impossible. Men are giving up, packing their wagons, heading back east, defeated by the very soil that was supposed to make them rich. The prairie, for all its promise, is winning. John Deere watches this from his forge. He sees the exhaustion in the farmers' faces, sees the despair, sees families starving on top of the richest soil in the world, and his blacksmith's brain begins working. The problem is not the dirt. The problem is the metal. Cast iron is too rough, Too porous, the soil sticks to it. What the farmers need is something smoother, something polished, something the dirt will slide off of. They need steel. 1837. John finds a broken steel saw blade at a local sawmill. It has been discarded, useless for cutting wood. But John sees potential. He takes the blade back to his forge, heats it until it glows red, hammers it, bends it, shapes it into a curved blade, polishes it until it shines like a mirror. He attaches the blade to a wooden frame, takes it to a neighbor's field, and plows. The result is almost miraculous. The polished steel cuts through the black earth like a knife through butter. The soil does not stick. It slides off the blade, clean and smooth. The plow does not clog, does not slow. It just moves, cutting a perfect furrow across the prairie. John Deere has invented the self-scouring steel plow, the tool that will unlock the American Midwest, the tool that will feed the world, the tool that will turn a fugitive blacksmith into the founder of a dynasty. But the plow is not just a tool, it is a curse, because from the moment John Deere realizes what he has created, he stops being a man. He becomes a machine, driven by fear, by the memory of Vermont, by the terror that if he ever stops working, the creditors will find him, the sheriff will come, the prison will open its doors. John Deere will spend the rest of his life running, not from the law, but from poverty, from failure, from the possibility that he might lose everything again, and that fear, that relentless, grinding anxiety, will be the inheritance he passes to his children, and his children's children, and every generation of Deeres who come after. Part 3. The machine grows. By the late 1840s, John Deere's plow is no longer a secret. Farmers across Illinois are buying them. Demand is exploding. John is making plows as fast as he can forge them, but Grand Detour is too small, too isolated. He needs better access to transportation. He needs a river. He needs a railroad. In 1848, John moves his operation to Moline, Illinois, a town on the banks of the Mississippi River. The location is perfect. Raw materials can be shipped in by boat. Finished plows can be shipped out to markets across the Midwest. Moline is where the John Deere Company transforms from a blacksmith shop into a factory. John builds a massive facility, multiple buildings, forges running constantly. The sound of hammers on steel ringing out day and night. He sends for his family. Demarius and the children finally join him, 13 years after he fled Vermont. 13 years of waiting, of hoping, of not knowing if they would ever see him again. The family is reunited, but they are not the same. The years of separation have created distance. And John, who spent more than a decade focused entirely on survival, does not know how to be a husband or a father. He only knows how to be a blacksmith, and now a businessman. John Deere raises his children in the shadow of the factory. His son, Charles, grows up listening to the hammers, watching his father work, learning that the business is everything, that survival requires constant vigilance, that rest is dangerous. John is obsessed with quality. He is terrified that a single bad plow will destroy his reputation, that customers will stop buying, that the business will fail, that he will end up back where he started, broke, wanted, running. He famously tells his workers, "I will never put my name on a product that does not have in it the best that is in me." It sounds noble, but it is not nobility. It is fear, the mantra of a man who cannot stop running even though he is no longer being chased. John Deere builds a fortune, but he does not build peace. He works until he is old, until his body gives out. And when he dies in 1886, he leaves behind a company worth millions, and a son who has learned that love is conditional, that approval must be earned, that the only thing that matters is the business. Charles Deere inherits the company and the curse. Part 4. The House That Watches. Charles Deere is not his father. John was an artist, a craftsman, a man who understood steel and fire. Charles is a general, a strategist, a man who understands markets and competition and how to crush rivals. Under Charles's leadership, the John Deere Company becomes a juggernaut. He expands aggressively, opens new factories, acquires competitors, pushes the company into international markets. By the late 1800s, John Deere is not just the largest manufacturer of plows in America. It is one of the largest industrial companies in the world, and in 1872, Charles decides to build a house. But not just any house, a monument, a statement, a physical manifestation of the Deere family's dominance. Most wealthy industrialists of the Gilded Age build their mansions far from their factories. The Vanderbilts retreat to Newport, the Rockefellers to the Hudson Valley. They create distance, buffers, green lawns, and silence between themselves and the source of their wealth. They want to forget how the money is made. Charles Deere does the opposite. He builds his mansion on a bluff in Moline, directly overlooking the factory. He names the estate Overlook. It is not a metaphor. It is a literal description. The house is 7,000 square feet. Swiss-style architecture, intricate woodwork, high ceilings, expensive furniture, beautiful, impressive. But the orientation of the house is singular. Every window, every room, designed to face the factory below. This is not a home, it is a watchtower. Charles Deere lives above his empire, watches it constantly, monitors it, controls it. He can see the smoke from the chimneys, can tell by the color whether the furnaces are running hot, can tell if there is a problem just by looking out his window. He does not separate his life from his work, because to Charles they are not separate. The factory is his heart. The house is just the brain that directs it. Living at Overlook means living inside the machine. The massive trip hammers in the factory below pound steel day and night. The sound travels up the limestone bluff into the foundation of the house. The crystal glasses in the dining room cupboards shiver in time with the machines. The family eats dinner to the rhythm of industrial violence. There is no silence at Overlook, only the constant, distant roar of steel being forged, of wealth being created, of the empire growing. And then there is the soot. The factory burns tons of coal every day. The smoke rises, and because Overlook sits on the ridge directly above the chimneys, the smoke drifts over the house. The white linens turn gray. The velvet curtains smell like burning coal. The maids fight a losing war against the dust that coats every surface. For Charles, this is the smell of success. He breathes the coal smoke like mountain air. But for his family, for his wife Mary and their children, the house is a gilded cage, suspended in a cloud of industrial pollution. They are rich, powerful. They travel to Europe, wear the finest clothes, host lavish parties, but they cannot escape the factory. The source of their wealth is also the source of their imprisonment. They live in a house that shakes, that smells, that never sleeps. Charles raises his children at Overlook. He teaches them that the business is everything, that duty comes before comfort, that the Deere name means responsibility. He does not have hobbies, does not relax. He has the company, and the company has him. As Charles ages, he expands the estate. More rooms, more gardens, but he never changes the view. He needs to see the factory, needs to hear the whistles, needs to know every moment of every day that the machine is running. Overlook is beautiful, but it is also a prison. Charles is the wealthiest man in Moline, but he is a prisoner of his own creation, chained to the window, watching the smoke, terrified that if he looks away, even for a moment, the fire might go out. Part 5. The Burden passes. Charles Deere dies in 1907. He has led the company for over 20 years, transformed it into a global empire, built a house that overlooks it all, but he does not leave behind a son to carry the burden. The Deere name in the direct mail line has run out. The company, the fortune, the estate, all of it passes to Charles's daughter, Catherine, and more importantly, to the man she married, William Wiman. William is capable, intelligent, driven, but he is not a Deere. He married into the Dynasty. He is a prince consort stepping into the boots of giants. The pressure is immediate and crushing. William is not just running a business, he is the custodian of a legend. The John Deere Company employs thousands of workers, supports entire towns. The eyes of the workers, the shareholders, the community, all fixed on him, watching, judging, waiting to see if he can carry the weight. William moves into Overlook with Catherine, takes the master suite where Charles once slept, stands at the window where Charles once watched, tries to fill the role, tries to be the general Charles had been, but the weight is too much. The factory, the company, the expectations, the constant pressure to be perfect, to never fail, to uphold the Deere legacy. It grinds William down. He works constantly, long hours, sleepless nights, pacing the halls of Overlook while the factory hums below. He is trying to hold back a tide with his bare hands, and his body begins to fail. In 1906, 1 year before Charles officially dies, William Wiman collapses. He is 44 years old. The cause of death is listed as complications from illness, but the real cause is stress, exhaustion, the crushing weight of responsibility he inherited by marrying into the Deere family. William did not die in a factory accident. He was not killed by a machine. He was ground down by the burden of carrying a dynasty. The curse of the plow claimed him. Catherine is left a widow, with 2 young sons, living in a mansion that vibrates with the sound of the machines that killed her husband. The estate is now officially known as the Deere Wiman House, a monument to 2 families, and to the cost of building an empire. Catherine does not flee. She is a Deere. She raises her sons, Charles Deere Wiman and his younger brother, to understand the gravity of their name, to understand that they are not just heirs, they are stewards, servants to the machine their great-grandfather built. The house is expanded, made even more opulent, gardens manicured to perfection, servants in starched uniforms moving through the halls. But the underlying atmosphere remains the same. It is a golden cage, beautiful, suffocating, suspended above a volcano. And the focus of the tragedy now narrows to the eldest son, Charles Deere Wiman, named after the grandfather who built Overlook. He is the chosen one. From birth, his destiny is welded to him. He is not allowed to be a boy. He is the heir, the next in line, the one who will carry the burden forward. Part 6. The Boy Who Could Not Escape. Charles Deere. Wiman grows up at Overlook. His bedroom window faces the factory. Every morning he wakes to the sound of the whistles. Every night he falls asleep to the distant roar of the machines. His childhood is the rhythmic pounding of steel, the smell of coal smoke, the vibration in the floorboards. He has ponies, tutors, fine clothes, European vacations, everything money can buy. But he does not have freedom. He does not have the option to be anything other than what his family needs him to be. The heir to the John Deere Company. The next steward of the empire, Charles, is bred to be an industrialist the way a racehorse is bred to run. He is taught that the business is everything, that duty comes before happiness, that the Deere name carries weight, responsibility, expectation. He grows up watching his mother, Catherine, manage the estate alone, watching her carry the burden his father could not, learning that love in the Deere family is demonstrated through work, through sacrifice, through standing at the window and watching the smoke. By the time Charles is old enough to take control, he has been thoroughly indoctrinated. He moves into the master suite, occupies the rooms where his grandfather died, where his father died. He stands at the window, watches the factory, and becomes the next prisoner of Overlook. The 1920s are a strange time at the Deere Wiman house. The jazz age is in full swing. The parties are legendary. Champagne flows. Music drifts out over the limestone bluff. The house is filled with guests, laughter, light. But beneath the surface, the tension is unbearable. Charles is working constantly, driving himself the way his grandfather did, the way his father did. He paces the library late into the night, cigar glowing in the darkness, papers spread across the desk, the light from his study, a beacon on the hill, signaling that the captain is still at the wheel. The factory below never sleeps, and neither does Charles. He is the master of the house, but he is a servant to the legacy. He cannot rest, cannot relax, cannot walk away, because to walk away would be betrayal. To let the company fail would be sin. The irony of the Deere Wiman house is that it was built to demonstrate mastery, control, dominance, but it proves the opposite. The factory has mastery over the family. The business controls the people. The empire owns its emperors. Charles has everything money can buy. But he does not have autonomy, does not have peace, does not have the freedom to close his eyes and stop watching the smoke. The house is beautiful. The gardens are perfect. The furniture is expensive, but it is not a home. It is a command post, a bunker, a place where men die young and sons are drafted into the war of commerce before they are old enough to understand what they are signing up for. And as the Roaring Twenties come to a crashing end, as the stock market collapses and the Great Depression begins, Charles Deere Wiman will find himself standing at that window, staring down at silent smokestacks, facing a threat that could destroy everything his ancestors built. The fear that drove the fugitive blacksmith from Vermont is back, and this time there is nowhere left to run. Part 7. The Silence That Screamed, October 1929. The stock market crashes, the economy collapses. Overnight, the world changes, and for the first time in nearly a century, the factory below Overlook goes silent. The orders stop. The farmers, who are the lifeblood of the John Deere Company, are broke, desperate. The fields are turning to dust. The drought is coming. The Great Depression is settling over the Midwest like a suffocating blanket, and the smokestacks below the Deere Wiman house stop breathing fire. For Charles Deere Wiman, the silence is more terrifying than the noise ever was. The factory has been the heartbeat of his life, the rhythm he has lived by since birth, and now it is stopping, slowing, dying. Charles stands at the window, stares down at the dormant factory, and feels the weight of 5 generations pressing down on his shoulders. His great-great-grandfather fled Vermont to escape prison. His great-grandfather built the company from nothing. His grandfather turned it into an empire. His father died trying to hold it together. And now it is Charles's turn, and the empire is collapsing. The board of directors is panicking, demanding layoffs, cost-cutting, closures. The company is bleeding money. There is no cash, no orders, no future. But Charles refuses. He sits in the library at Overlook, surrounded by portraits of his ancestors, and he makes a decision that will define him. He will not lay off the core workforce. He will keep the factory running, even if it means burning through every dollar, even if it means risking everything. He issues checks to the workers, IOUs, backed only by the Deere name, by his promise that when the economy recovers they will be paid. It is a gamble, a desperate, reckless gamble. He is betting the entire fortune, the entire estate, the entire future of the family, on the belief that the American soil will yield again. Charles spends the Depression years pacing the floors at Overlook, a prisoner of his own responsibility. The stress is corrosive. He ages rapidly. His face takes on the gaunt, hardened look of his grandfather, the look of a man carrying weight that should have broken him. The lights in his study burn until dawn, every night, a lone beacon on the hill, signaling that the captain is still at the wheel, still fighting, still refusing to surrender. The house is no longer a place of parties. It is a bunker under siege. The champagne is gone. The music is gone. What remains is duty, responsibility, the crushing weight of 5 generations of expectation. Charles succeeds. Eventually, the economy recovers. The farmers return. The orders come back. The factory roars to life. The smokestacks breathe fire again. Charles has saved the company, saved the dynasty, upheld the legacy, but the victory is hollow. Because the years of stress have left deep scars, not just on Charles, but on the entire family. The anxiety, the fear, the knowledge that it could all disappear in an instant. That knowledge never leaves. The grinding pressure of those years, the sheer weight of carrying an entire city on his back, breaks something in Charles. He continues leading the company, but he is not the same. The light in his eyes is gone, replaced by something harder, colder, the look of a man who has stared into the abyss and survived, but lost something essential in the process. Part 8, The Breaking of the Chain. By the 1950s, something shifts. The new generation of the Deere family looks at Overlook and sees not a monument, but a prison. They have grown up in the shadow of the factory, have listened to the stories of their grandfather's suicide from stress, their father's early death, their uncle's grinding anxiety during the Depression. They have inherited wealth, power, but they have also inherited trauma, the knowledge that the empire demands everything, that it consumes the people who serve it, that the price of maintaining the dynasty is your life, and they decide quietly but firmly that they are done. They move away from Overlook, leave the house on the hill, seek out quieter neighborhoods, places where the air is clean and the ground does not shake, where they can sleep without hearing the factory, where they can live without watching the smoke. The Deere Wiman house stands empty. For the first time in decades, no one lives in the master suite. No one stands at the window watching the factory. The chain is broken. The family donates the estate for public use. It becomes a museum, a center for history, a place where tourists can walk through the heavy wooden doors and see how the industrial aristocracy lived. They can stand in the dining room where the crystal once shivered, can look out the windows at the view that obsessed Charles Deere, but visitors always remark on the atmosphere. The house does not feel warm, does not feel lived in. It feels serious, imposing, heavy. The furniture is stiff, the portraits are stern. It is a house that commands respect but does not invite intimacy, because the Deere Wiman house was never really a home. It was a command post, a watchtower, a place where men stood guard over an empire, a place where duty was religion and the factory was God. The house stands today as a monument, but what does it commemorate? Success or sacrifice? Triumph or tragedy? The answer is both, because the Deere family accomplished exactly what the fugitive blacksmith set out to do. They escaped poverty, built an empire, created a brand recognized around the world, fed millions of people, but the price was their peace, their autonomy, their ability to live lives that were truly their own. They were servants to the business, slaves to the legacy, prisoners in a beautiful house that vibrated with the sound of money being made. Part 9, What the House Reveals. The Deere Wiman house is not the grandest mansion in America, not the most expensive, not the most famous, but it reveals something fundamental about wealth, about dynasties, about what it costs to build an empire. The house was built by men who believed they were demonstrating mastery, control, dominance over the land and the market, but what it actually demonstrates is the opposite. The factory had mastery over them. The business controlled their lives. The empire owned its emperors. Charles Deere could have built his mansion anywhere, on a quiet street in Chicago, on a lake in Michigan, anywhere he wanted. He chose to build it directly above the factory, chose to watch it constantly, chose to live inside the noise and the smoke and the vibration. Why? Because he could not let go, could not trust that the empire would survive without constant surveillance, could not relax, could not rest, could not believe that he had done enough. That anxiety was inherited, passed from John Deere, the fugitive fleeing Vermont, to Charles Deere, the general building Overlook, to William Wiman, who died at 44, to Charles Deere Wiman, who ground himself down, saving the company during the Depression. Each generation inherited wealth, but they also inherited fear, the terror that it could all disappear, that poverty was always one mistake away, that the only way to stay safe was to never stop working, never stop watching, never stop grinding. The house is a physical manifestation of that fear. 7,000 square feet of anxiety, built on a bluff so the family could watch the source of their wealth every moment of every day, so they could never forget, never relax, never escape. The tragedy of the Deere Wiman house is that it was supposed to represent freedom. The fugitive blacksmith escaped Vermont, built a fortune, built a mansion, achieved the American dream. But the mansion became another kind of prison, gilded, beautiful, but a prison nonetheless. The family that lived at Overlook had everything money could buy, but they did not have peace, did not have autonomy, did not have lives that were truly their own. They were defined entirely by the business, by the duty, by the expectation that they would sacrifice everything to maintain the empire, and eventually they broke. The chain snapped. The new generation walked away, left the house empty, refused to stand at the window and watch the smoke, chose peace over duty, chose their own lives over the legacy. The house stands today as a museum, a monument, a reminder. You can walk through it, see the rooms where industrial titans lived, stand at the window where they watched their empire, feel the weight that crushed them, but you cannot stay, because the house is not designed for living. It is designed for watching, for working, for serving the machine, and the machine, for all its power, for all the wealth it created, could not give the people who served it the one thing they actually needed: rest. Part 10. The Legacy in Steel and Sorrow. Today, the John Deere Company is worth billions. The brand is recognized worldwide. The green and yellow tractors work fields on every continent. The company employs tens of thousands of people. It is a testament to the vision of a fugitive blacksmith who fled Vermont with $73 and a dream. But the Deere Wiman house tells a different story, a darker story, about what that success cost, the people who built it, the families who maintained it, the generations who were crushed by the weight of it. John Deere ran from poverty, built an empire to ensure he would never be poor again. But in doing so, he created a monster that demanded constant feeding, that consumed the people who served it, that turned love into duty and family into obligation. The house on the bluff was supposed to be a monument to triumph, but it became a monument to sacrifice, to the men who died young, to the women who raised children alone, to the sons who were drafted into the war of commerce before they understood what they were signing up for. The green machine fed the world, but it slowly consumed the family that created it. And the house, beautiful and imposing and full of expensive furniture, stands as evidence of that consumption, a reminder that wealth is not freedom, that success is not peace, that building an empire requires sacrifices most people are not willing to make. And when you do make those sacrifices, when you give everything to the business, when you stand at the window watching the smoke until your body gives out, what do you have? A company that will outlive you, a brand that will be remembered, a mansion that will become a museum. But you do not have your life, you do not have your time, you do not have the peace you were supposedly building toward. The fugitive blacksmith escaped one prison, but his success built another, and his descendants lived in that prison for 5 generations before finally walking away, before finally choosing themselves over the empire, before finally admitting that the price was too high. The Deere Wiman house stands on the bluff in Moline. The factory below still produces tractors. The John Deere brand still dominates the market. But the family that built it is gone, scattered, no longer chained to the window, no longer watching the smoke. And maybe that is the real ending to the story, not tragedy, but liberation, the breaking of a chain that should never have been forged in the first place. The realization that an empire, no matter how successful, is not worth your life. The house is beautiful, the view is impressive, but it is also empty, because the people who were supposed to fill it finally realized what their ancestors could not. That rest is not weakness, that walking away is not failure, that choosing peace over duty, life over legacy, is not betrayal, it is survival. The fugitive ran to escape prison. His descendants ran to escape the empire he built. Both were running toward the same thing, freedom. And in the end, the only way to find it was to stop watching the smoke and walk away. If you enjoyed this investigation into the Deere Wiman estate and the dark cost of building America's tractor empire, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support makes these detailed stories possible. Tell me in the comments which estate or mansion you want explored next. Every grand home has its shadows. Every empire has its casualties. Every dynasty eventually breaks under the weight it carries. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next investigation.